right, the Great Resignation is officially over. The era marked a mass exodus of workers spurred on by the pandemic. So what does this mean for job seekers, employees, and companies alike? The founder of Wilbanks Consulting Group, Holly Wilbanks, is here to help answer that question. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
And I have to tell you first off the bat, I had so much fun with you at Jazzercise. You have so many different skill sets, but it was so great to be able to do that with you.
I'm glad you got to experience my hobby.
It was wonderful. All right, so how do we know that the Great Resignation is officially over?
So there are a couple of indicators. The first one is the number of quits. The number of people quitting their jobs is something that the Bureau of Labor and Statistics actually tracks. And we are back to almost pre-pandemic numbers. So at the height of the pandemic, about 4.5 million people were quitting their job per month.
Crazy.
As of September, that's around 3.7 million. And what that tells us is that people are not necessarily jumping ship without necessarily having a strategy.
And so what does this mean for both sides of it? Because this also means that employers are not actively looking to fill a lot of vacancies anymore.
Exactly. The playing field has really leveled between employers and candidates. And in a lot of ways, that is a good thing. But the reality is we're seeing employers sort of up their game now in terms of trying to attract the right talent. And employees or job candidates who are searching for new opportunities are starting to up their game a little bit too. We saw a lot of bad or unprofessional behavior in the job search there for a while.
You did? And what kind of things were you seeing primarily?
You know, candidates would apply for a position, they'd get invited, they'd accept an interview, but then they wouldn't show up. Or they would get through an interview process and then suddenly ghost a recruiter. Or they would show up to an interview and they would be like, it's so lovely that you work that way. The way that I work is like
right.
this, so
Yes.
I hope that works for you. We're seeing less of that in the market, and the people who are still exhibiting those bad behaviors, they're not getting selected.
So are we back to a fair level playing field, or is the balance off a little bit? Like, what happens if you are looking for a job?
The balance is there, which is a good thing. If you're looking for a job, there are still opportunities, right? So when we look at the unemployment rate, which is 3.9% right now, we can see that, yes, there are less opportunities, but there are still opportunities. So employers who have a vacancy right now, it is most likely because they actually need a body. It's not an extra person. Employers are being conservative. If somebody leaves and they're not sure that they have the demand for that role, they're not backfilling that role.
I do feel like at one point, because there were so many vacancies, there were some employees who were able to actually ask for more or ask for things that they maybe wouldn't have asked for prior to the pandemic, prior to the Great Resignation. Does that still exist? Do you still have wiggle room to make demands?
Absolutely. It's always great to negotiate, particularly if it's something that's really important to you. But we recommend that candidates really figure out what are the things that are important to you and focus on the opportunities that are naturally offering that, or you think you might be able to work something out in relation to that. You can't come in with a list of 20 demands. That's probably not going to work in your favor.
Yeah.
But having 2, 3, even 4 key things that are important to you and then talking to that employer about that, that may work out in your favor.
So I think that the battle is still on about work from home, work in the office. If that is one of your key things, but you're doing this interview and they want you in the office, is there wiggle room with that one?
It really depends.
Yeah.
There are opportunities out there where either they need a person in the office or they just want people in the office
Right.
because they think it works best for their business. And there may not be wiggle room in those situations. There are opportunities out there, and employers are getting really creative about this, especially the recruiters. They'll say on-site or hybrid, or on-site or remote, hybrid or remote in the job posting. So look for those clues as you're searching.
And what about with compensation? Because I feel like salary, obviously it's a big component of any job, but we're still kind of seeing this, like some companies are doing well, some are really trying to conserve still. So what are you seeing on that front?
In terms of compensation, we really saw employers sort of raise the bar and up their game during, the pandemic and the Great Resignation when it first happened. That has continued. So a few years ago, the predominant search was $15 per hour for a job. Now the predominant search is $25 per hour for a job. And employers have recognized that one of the things employees are saying in their top 2 or 3 things that they need is fair compensation. So many of them, where they can, are getting creative to up compensation or just benefits offerings.
Just something. Yeah, I mean, gosh, one trip to the grocery store, especially if you're shopping for Thanksgiving, you know how expensive it is. So you need that salary to match. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you, Heather.
And happy Thanksgiving to you. If you're interested in learning more tips about searching for a job, we're going to have a link to the blog created by the Wilbanks Consulting Group on our website. Something to check out. Still to come on Talk Pittsburgh, the WPL Championships are returning to your TV screen on KDKA+. We are so lucky to have Dan Rooney sharing the importance of highlighting these young athletes as they get a chance to play at Acrisure Stadium when we come back.